Do you believe someone can come back from the dead and remember everything they experienced on the other side? It sounds like something out of a movie, but it actually happened. A simple housewife with no history of serious health problems was declared dead for 42 hours. 42 hours. Enough time for doctors, family, and even neighbors to accept the inevitable. But just when everything seemed over, she came back. She breathed. She opened her eyes. And what she said next is simply unbelievable. What you're about to discover may surprise you. This story isn't just about an unexpected resurrection. It's about what happens when the body stops, but consciousness continues. About near-death experiences that defy logic, science, and even our deepest beliefs. She reported passing through a tunnel, feeling an indescribable peace, hearing voices, seeing places that don't exist in this world. And what's more, she received a message that completely changed her way of life. Have you ever been through this? Have you ever felt like there's something beyond what meets the eye? Stay with me until the end, because this journey goes far beyond an isolated incident. There are thousands of similar accounts from people who died for minutes and returned with soul-stirring stories. And perhaps by hearing what this woman experienced, you'll begin to see life and death in a completely different light. Prepare to immerse yourself in a universe where spirituality, science, and mystery collide. Because what comes next could change everything. And as you listen to this story, maybe something inside you'll begin to stir too. Because it's not just about what she experienced, it's about what it awakens in each of us. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below with what has touched you most so far. It could be a memory, a question, or even a similar experience. Your voice here is important. It helps build a space where spirituality is welcomed with respect and depth. And if you feel like continuing this journey with us, please like the video. This shows that this type of content is valuable to you, and helps spread this message to more people who are also seeking answers, comfort, or connection. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more hearts. Oh, and if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Because in the next videos, we'll dive even deeper into real-life stories from people who've been between two worlds, and come back with something transformative to tell. Each story is a piece of a larger puzzle, and you're a part of it. Now, take a deep breath, because what this woman reveals about what she saw, heard, and felt during those 42 hours will take you to places you may never have imagined. It all began on an ordinary morning, like so many others. She was at home, making coffee, when she felt a sudden dizziness, followed by a blackout. Within minutes, her body was no longer responding. She was rushed to the hospital, but her vital signs had ceased. Cardiac arrest. No brain activity was detected. Doctors tried to revive her, applying emergency protocols, but nothing worked. The diagnosis was clear and devastating: clinical death. The news spread quickly among her family, who arrived at the hospital in a state of shock. Her husband, in disbelief, held her hand as if the warmth would return. The children stared silently at their mother's motionless body, trying to understand how someone so full of life could simply stop. The medical team, experienced and accustomed to extreme situations, was also shaken. This wasn't just another case. There was something different about it. The lack of explanations, the speed with which everything happened, the emptiness that remained in the room. And then, time began to pass. Hours. Many hours. The body was kept under observation, per protocol, but without any expectations. It was 42 hours of silence, of anticipated mourning, of unspoken goodbyes. Until, against all odds, she breathed. A light, almost imperceptible sigh, but enough to prompt one of the nurses to rush into the room and summon the doctors. Monitors began to register activity. The heart began to beat again. The eyes opened. And what seemed impossible became real. The reaction was immediate. Doctors were perplexed, family members were ecstatic, and there was a collective sense that something much bigger was happening. This wasn't just a medical miracle. It was a break in logic, a revelation that surpassed the limits of science. And when she began to speak, still weak in her voice, everyone fell silent. Because what she had to say didn't come from this world. Her words carried a different energy. She claimed to have been conscious the entire time. Not in her body, but somewhere else. A space where time doesn't exist, where everything is light, where there is a presence that welcomes, that guides, that reveals hidden truths about who we are and why we are here. This type of report isn't isolated. There are thousands of documented cases of people who have had near-death experiences and returned with similar stories. But what's striking about this case is its duration. 42 hours. It's too long for any conventional explanation. And yet, she returned with lucidity, with details, with a clarity that was impressive. She described places, sounds, sensations. She said she relived moments from her own life, as if watching a movie, but with a much deeper emotional understanding. Each scene was accompanied by a feeling, an awareness of the impact her decisions had on others. It was as if she were being invited to understand her own journey from a new perspective. This kind of experience often provokes a radical transformation in the mindset of those who experience it. And hers was no different. The woman who returned was not the same woman who had left. There was a serenity, a lightness, a certainty that there is something beyond. And that moves us. Because deep down, we all carry questions we avoid asking. What happens after death? Is there truly a consciousness that survives the body? And if so, what does it reveal about the purpose of life? These are questions that don't have easy answers, but they gain strength when stories like this emerge. They invite us to look within, to rethink our choices, to seek meaning in the little things. What she saw on this other side could bring revelations that go far beyond spirituality. It could touch on aspects of our identity, how we deal with time, relationships, and fear. And perhaps by understanding the behind the scenes of this experience, you'll begin to realize that there's a hidden truth behind what we call the end. A truth that transforms, that heals, that awakens. Comment below, "This makes sense to me," just so I know you're on this journey too. She said that, the moment everything went dark here, an intense light appeared before her, but it was no ordinary light. It didn't blind, it didn't burn, it didn't frighten. It was a light that welcomed, that enveloped, that seemed to speak to her without words. She described a place where time didn't exist, and all was love. A space without defined form, but with a presence so strong that she felt as if she were being watched by something infinitely wise and compassionate. There was no pain, no fear, no rush. Only a profound peace, as if she had finally returned home. In this environment, she said she encountered people who had already passed away. Family, friends, faces she hadn't seen in years. But the curious thing is that these weren't just nostalgic encounters, they were reunions with purpose. Each presence seemed to have something to say, something to show. As if they were there to help her understand parts of her own journey that were still open. And it was at that moment that she began to see scenes from her life. Not as isolated memories, but as a continuous line, where every decision had an impact, every gesture left a mark, every word carried a consequence. She spoke about feeling everything deeply. The joys she caused, the regrets she never expressed, the moments she could have done differently. It was as if she were being invited to look at herself honestly, without judgment, but with clarity. And then, just when she thought she would remain there, came the most shocking moment. She heard a sentence. Not with her ears, but with her heart. A direct, firm message that said, "It's not over yet. You have something to accomplish." And that's when everything changed. The light began to recede, the floating sensation giving way to a gentle weight, and she felt herself returning. Returning to her body, to life, to the mission that was not yet finished. This phrase she heard carries a power that goes beyond spiritual experience. It touches on something we all feel at some point, the sense that there is a greater purpose, even when we can't see it clearly. And perhaps understanding the impact of this message is the key to transforming the way we live each day. Right there, I'm on this journey too, just so I know you're feeling it with me. What this woman experienced during the 42 hours she was clinically dead is not an isolated case. There are thousands of similar accounts, from people of different cultures, ages, and beliefs, who have experienced near-death experiences and returned with stories that challenge everything we know about consciousness, time, and existence. And the most curious thing is that, despite individual differences, there are patterns that repeat themselves with impressive precision. The sensation of floating above one's own body, as if observing everything from the outside. The dark tunnel that opens up and leads to an intense, welcoming light that conveys peace and belonging. A review of life, where each moment is relived with an emotional clarity that transcends any ordinary memory. And in many cases, the presence of beings, sometimes family members, sometimes spiritual figures, who seem to guide, comfort, or teach something essential. These patterns are so recurrent that they have caught the attention of serious researchers around the world. Doctors, neuroscientists, and psychologists have begun to investigate the phenomenon of NDEs in greater depth, trying to understand what happens to the human mind when the body collapses. One of the most well-known studies was conducted by Dutch cardiologist Pim van Lommel, who analyzed patients who had been resuscitated after cardiac arrest. He found that about 18% of them reported vivid experiences during the period when they were clinically dead. And these weren't disconnected hallucinations. They were coherent, meaningful narratives that had a direct impact on how these people lived their lives later. Science still doesn't have a definitive explanation. Some try to attribute these experiences to chemical reactions in the brain in a critical state. Others believe there's something beyond brain activity, a consciousness that doesn't depend on the physical body to exist. And it is at this point that spirituality and science begin to converge. Because, even without concrete answers, the stories continue to emerge, increasingly detailed, increasingly transformative. And what they reveal is not only what may exist after death, but also what we may be ignoring while we are alive. Understanding the impact of these revelations can completely change the way we view our decisions, our relationships, and even the meaning of our journey here. Comment, "This makes sense to me, just so I know you're connecting with this reflection." She came back, but she was never the same. And maybe you won't be either, after hearing this. Because when someone goes through an experience so profound, so outside the norms of ordinary reality, something inside reorganizes. The woman who once lived on autopilot, amidst household chores and daily worries, began to see everything differently. She said that every gesture now carried weight, every word carried intention, and every encounter felt like part of a larger plot. The fear of death, which had previously paralyzed her, simply disappeared. Not because she became reckless, but because she understood that life doesn't end when the body stops. And this understanding brought a lightness that was evident even in the way she walked. The transformation wasn't just spiritual, it was practical. She began making different decisions, more aligned with what she felt was true. She walked away from relationships that no longer made sense, reached out to people she'd previously taken for granted, and began dedicating time to what truly mattered. Her mindset shifted. The focus shifted from what she wanted to achieve to what she could offer. And this is something many report after near-death experiences, a radical shift in their way of living. More empathy, more presence, more purpose. As if the journey had gained a new map, with paths that were previously invisible. These revelations aren't just curious, they have a direct impact on how we view our own backstage experiences. Because deep down, we all carry questions about the meaning of existence, what we're here for, and what truly matters. And when someone comes back from the brink of death with answers that touch so deeply, it's impossible not to wonder too. Perhaps the hidden truth she accessed is available to all of us, just waiting for us to stop, breathe, and look more closely. Understanding what she saw in that space between worlds can reveal a lot about who we are and what we are still ignoring. Comment, "I'm on this journey too, just so I know you're feeling it with me." What if death is just a passage, and not the end? This question, which for so long was surrounded by fear, silence, and taboo, begins to take on new meaning when we hear stories like this woman's. Because what she experienced wasn't a blackout, it wasn't absence, it was presence. A presence so intense that it completely transformed his perception of what it means to be alive. And this leads us to reflect on something we may have ignored for too long, the impact of our choices while we're here. If there is something beyond, if there is a continuity of consciousness, then every decision we make now carries a weight that transcends time. Every gesture of compassion, every word spoken with intention, every moment of silence may be building something that goes far beyond what we can see. This idea isn't about fear, nor blind faith. It's about expansion. About making room for a new mindset, where life isn't measured solely by material achievements, but by the depth of the connections we create. And when someone returns from death with this clarity, with this serenity, it's as if they bring a map, not to avoid the end, but to live with more purpose until it. The hidden truth many report in these near-death states isn't in the technical details, but in the feeling that everything makes sense. That there's an invisible order guiding the journey. That even in the most difficult moments, there's something watching us, sustaining us, reminding us of who we truly are. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Because this vision of continuity can reveal behind-the-scenes aspects of existence that completely change the way we view time, suffering, and even the idea of destiny. Comment below, "This makes sense to me, just so I know this reflection touched you too. If you've made it this far, it's because this story touched something deep inside you. And that says a lot about the kind of connection we've created throughout this video. If this content brought you reflection, clarity, or even that good silence that comes when something makes sense, leave a like. It's a simple way to show that this conversation was worthwhile. And if you feel like continuing to explore topics like this, subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss future videos that follow the same theme: deep, real, and full of meaning. Oh, and so I know you stuck around until the end. Comment, "This message was for me." It's always special to see people walking this journey together. There's a video here on the side that complements this subject. Click and continue with me there. The conversation still has a lot to reveal.